The VA is about to change how they rate every mental health condition. Not a tweak, not an adjustment, a complete rewrite and overhaul of the rules. The first major overhaul since the 1990s. And here's what nobody's telling you. For some veterans, this could mean automatic increases, higher ratings under the new criteria than you'd ever get under the old system. For others, though, if you don't understand what's changing and update your evidence accordingly, you could get left behind while the system moves on without you. The VA isn't going to call you. They're not going to review your old file. They're not going to automatically apply these new rules to your existing rating, unless you take action. So here's a stat that puts this in perspective. PTSD is the most commonly claimed VA disability condition. Over 1.3 million veterans are currently rated for PTSD alone, not counting depression, anxiety, and all the other mental health conditions. And every single one of those ratings was determined under criteria that date back to the language from the 1950s. I'm talking vague terms, subjective interpretations, examiners trying to guess what occupational and social impairment actually mean. But in 2026, that's changing. The VA is replacing the old system with 5 concrete, measurable functional domains, a new rating structure that could push veterans who are currently at 50 to 70%, veterans at 70 to 100%. But, and here's the big but, there's a catch. The VA isn't automatically reviewing anyone. If your claim is already closed, you're going to have to file to trigger the new criteria. And if you don't understand what the new criteria are, you won't know what evidence to submit. So let me explain everything, all right? I'm Dr. Marshall Bahr, an actual doctor, an Army Ranger, a former Special Operations Combat Medic, and a former C&P examiner. I have conducted several PTSD exams. I've written the medical opinions that determine the ratings. I've seen how the current system works, and I've seen how it often fails veterans. The criteria we've been using are outdated. They leave too much room for interpretation. 2 examiners can look at the same veteran and come to completely different conclusions. But the 2026 changes are designed to fix that. It's more objective, more measurable, more tied to how PTSD actually affects your daily life. But the VA isn't advertising these changes. They're not sending out mailers explaining what's coming. So I'm going to break it down. What's changing, who benefits, and exactly what you need to do to make sure you're not left behind. So let me explain why this change is even happening in the first place, because it helps you understand what's coming. The current VA rating criteria for mental health conditions uses language like occupational and social impairment. At 50%, the criteria talk about reduced reliability and productivity. At 70%, it's deficiencies in most areas. At 100%, it's total occupational and social impairment. I mean, it sounds clear, right? But it's not. What does deficiencies in most areas actually mean? How do you measure it? How does a C&P examiner document it? The answer is they often guess. They often have to interpret. They try to translate your symptoms into these vague categories, and different examiners do it differently, whether they have bias or not. I have seen veterans with severe PTSD get rated at 50% because the C&P examiner interpreted the criteria one way. Then the same veteran files for an increase, gets a different examiner, and suddenly they're at 70% rating, not because anything changed, but because the interpretation changed. That's not a good system. That's a lottery, in my opinion. The 2026 changes are designed to replace vague language with concrete, measurable functional domains. Instead of asking, does this veteran have occupational impairment? The VA now will ask specific questions about specific functions, and that changes everything. So what are these 5 functional domains that the VA is implementing, right? So from now on, when this does roll out, every mental health rating will be based on these, right? So domain 1 is cognition. This is just measuring your memory, your concentration, and processing speed. Like, can you follow a conversation without losing track? Can you remember your appointments? Can you process information quickly enough to function? Now, under the old system, cognitive symptoms often got lumped into vague categories. Under the new system, though, cognition is its own domain with specific severity levels. So if your PTSD affects your memory, if you walk into rooms and forget why you're there, if you can't concentrate long enough to read a chapter of a book, if your processing speed has tanked since your service, that's now specifically measured. Now, domain 2 is task completion. This addresses your executive dysfunction, your ability to start, organize, and finish daily tasks and requirements. Like, can you pay bills on time? Can you complete work projects? Can you follow through on plans? Executive dysfunction is one of the most common and most debilitating symptoms of PTSD. And under the old system, it was almost invisible. C&P examiners didn't have a clear way to document it. But under the new system, task completion is its own domain. So if you struggle to finish what you start, if you need constant reminders, if your life is a pile of incomplete projects, that's now specifically ratable. Domain number 3, interpersonal functioning. This looks at social dynamics, conflict, isolation, your ability to maintain relationships. Like, do you avoid people? Do you isolate? Do you have difficulty maintaining employment because you can't get along with coworkers? Have you lost relationships because of your symptoms? Under the old criteria mentioned, difficulty establishing and maintaining effective relationships. But it was buried in other language. But in the new system, it makes interpersonal functioning a standalone domain with its own severity scale. Now, domain 4 is navigating environments. And this is the revolutionary one. This domain measures hypervigilance, avoidance, and your ability to function in public areas. Like, can you go to a grocery store without scanning every exit? Can you sit in a restaurant without your back to the wall? Can you handle crowds? Can you use public transportation? Under the old system, these symptoms existed, but there was no clear way to rate them. Examiners might mention hypervigilance, but it didn't map cleanly to a rating level. Under the new system, though, navigating environments is specifically measured. If you can't function in public spaces, if you avoid stores, events, anywhere with crowds, that's now its own rateable domain. In the 5th and final domain, self-care. This is just evaluating your hygiene, nutrition, and reliance on others for basic survival needs. Like, can you maintain basic hygiene? Can you feed yourself regularly? Do you need someone else to remind you to shower, eat, or take your medications? Self-care deficits are often associated with severe PTSD and depression. But under the old system, they only really showed up at the 100% level. Under the new system, though, self-care is now measured across all severity levels. So here's where it gets really interesting. The new system doesn't just change what is measured, it also changes how ratings are calculated. Under the current system, examiners try to create an overall picture of impairment and match it to a rating level. I mean, it's holistic, which sounds good, but actually means it's very subjective. It's beholden to whoever's looking at it. Under the new system, ratings are based on a threshold model. Each domain is scored on a severity scale from a level of 0 through 4. And here's the key. You don't have to be severely impaired in all domains to get a high rating. Here's an example. And the specific thresholds may be adjusted before final implementation, but a 100% rating could be achieved by scoring a level 4 in just one domain, or a level 3 in 2 separate domains. And what does this mean practically? Well, it means a veteran with severe hypervigilance and environmental avoidance, level 4 in navigating environments, could qualify for a 100% rating, even if their self-care and cognition are relatively intact. Under the old system, that veteran might be at 70% because the examiner saw that they could still shower and hold conversations. The overall picture didn't look totally impaired to them. But under the new system, severe impairment in one domain can drive your rating. This is a massive shift, and for veterans with specific severe symptoms rather than across-the-board impairment, it could mean significant increases. Now, here's another change that's long overdue. Under the new rules, any service-connected mental health condition will receive at least a 10% rating. No more 0% ratings for PTSD. No more, we acknowledge your trauma, but we're not going to compensate you for it. That 0% rating has been an insult to veterans for decades. The VA would say, yes, your PTSD is connected to service, and then pay you nothing? Under the new system, if it's service connected, you're going to get at least 10%. Is 10% a lot? No, but it's at least $170 a month currently. But it's also an acknowledgement. It's something, and more importantly, it opens the door to an increase as your condition changes over time. If you're currently at 0% for any mental health condition, the 2026 changes should automatically raise you to at least a 10% rating. Now, here's something critical that a lot of veterans don't know about. Under CFR 38, the favorable findings rule. This regulation says that when rating criteria change, the VA is required to apply whichever version of the rule, whether old or new, provides the highest compensation to the veteran. So, what does this mean for you? It means if you have an active or a pending claim when the 2026 changes take effect, the VA must evaluate your claim under both the old and the new criteria and then give you the higher rating. You don't have to choose. You don't have to guess which system benefits you more. The VA is legally required to apply whichever one is better for you. And this is huge. It's massive. It means timing matters. If you're thinking about filing a claim for mental health increases, having that claim active when the new rules kick in means you get the benefit of both systems. But, and this is very important, this only applies to active or pending claims. If your claim is already closed, you're not going to automatically get reviewed, all right? So it has to be active or pending status. Now, let me be absolutely clear about this because it's the most important thing I'm going to say. The VA will not automatically review old closed files. If you were rated at 50% for PTSD 5 years ago and your claim is closed, the VA is not going to pull your file from 2020, you pull your file from that date in 2026 and apply the new criteria and then just send you an increased rating. That's not how this works. To trigger the new criteria, you're going to have to take action. You're going to have to file for an increase or file a supplemental claim or file a higher level review if you've got grounds for one. Your action then triggers the review. Your filing is what makes the VA apply the new rules to your case. Now, if you sit back and wait for the VA to come to you, you're going to be waiting forever, my friend. I know it's frustrating. You'd think that if the VA changed the rules in ways that benefit veterans, they'd automatically apply those changes to everyone, but they won't. They don't have the resources. They don't have the mandate. And frankly, it saves them money if veterans don't know to file. So I am telling you now, if you think the new criteria might benefit you, you need to start preparing your evidence, your medical evidence, and plan to file. Now, here's the practical part and what you need to do. The new system means the new disability benefits questionnaires, DBQs, will be mapped to these 5 functional domains. The question examiners ask are going to become different. The way they document your symptoms will be different, which means your medical evidence needs to address these specific domains. If you're filing for an increase or a new claim after the 2026 changes have gone into effect, your personal statement should specifically address cognition. It should specifically address task completion. It should specifically address all your issues with interpersonal functioning, like things that you avoid, social gatherings you avoid. It should specifically address navigating environments, like where can't you go? What do you avoid? What happens when you go there? And it should specifically address self-care, how long you go without doing things, what other people have to do for you. And your buddy statements and spousal letters should address these same domains. The more evidence that map to the new criteria, the easier it is for your C&P examiner to rate you accurately. Now, if you got a C&P exam after the changes take effect, know what domains you're being evaluated on. Know how to describe your symptoms in terms the C&P examiner is documenting. So let me tell you why all of this matters. I worked with a veteran last year. He was an Army vet, served in Iraq, severe PTSD. He'd been at 50% for 8 years. When I looked at his symptoms through the lens of the new domains, his profile was clear. Severe impairment in navigating environments, moderate to severe in interpersonal functioning, moderate in task completion. Under the old criteria, examiners saw a guy who could hold a job, even though it was barely, and maintain basic hygiene. And they gave him 50%. But under the new criteria, his severe environmental avoidance and interpersonal dysfunction would likely push him to 70% or higher. Now, he's just waiting for the changes to file his increase. And when he does, his medical evidence will be mapped to the new domains. So here's what you should do. Step 1 is understand these 5 domains: cognition, task completion, interpersonal functioning, navigating environments, and self-care. Think about how your symptoms map to each one. Step 2 is update your medical evidence. Write a new personal statement that specifically addresses each domain. Get buddy statements and spouse letters that document your impairment in these areas. Step 3, if you're currently rated for a mental health condition and you believe you're underrated, prepare to file for an increase once the new rules take effect. Having an active claim, remember, triggers the favorable findings rule. And then step 4, if you're at 0% for any mental health condition, you should automatically be raised to 10%. But verify this happens. Don't assume anything that the VA will do without prompting it, right? And then step 5, get help. VSOs can assist you for free. Or if you need help with medical evidence, nexus letters, claim strategy, or C&P exam preps tailored to the new criteria, that is what we do and I do every day at Xterra Health. If you're interested in any of these services, the links are in the description below. Now remember, the 2026 mental health rating changes are the biggest overhaul in decades. More objective, more measurable, more tied to how PTSD and other mental health conditions actually affect your life. But the VA isn't going to apply these changes to you automatically. You're going to have to file. You have to submit evidence that maps to the new criteria. You have to take action. Remember, I am Dr. Marshall Bahr. I'm an actual doctor. I'm an Army Ranger, a former C&P examiner, and a disabled vet myself. The system is a-changin'. The question is whether you'll be ready when it does. So subscribe if you want to stay ahead of what the VA isn't telling you. I'll see you in the next video, and until next time, stay mission ready.